Hello, my friends, and happy Easter. This is one of the most glorious times of year, and I can't think of a better group of people to celebrate it with than all of you. I'm actually really thankful that the church is elevating our Easter game, because this is no game. This is one of the most important things we can do all year. I've sometimes pondered, if you were to rank the holidays from most important to least important, where would you rank them? Maybe Halloween down near the bottom, as important as candy might be. But as far as real meaning of it all, I don't know how much there is in that one. A lot of the other holidays are going to rank somewhere else in between, but I'll bet that Christmas and Easter would vie for the top of the list as far as importance is concerned. But if they're neck and neck as far as importance, as far as how much we do to celebrate and honor those days, I don't think that's neck and neck. And that's a problem. It's amazing for me to see how early they start stocking Christmas things on the shelves at Walmart and things. To how early in the season, I mean, it's not even Halloween and we're listening to Christmas music or putting out the Christmas lights. Do we start celebrating Easter in January? Maybe we should. When do we start playing our Easter music? And do we have enough to fill days on end 24/7? What do we do to set out? Do we set out an Easter basket and have it there just building anticipation for the entire month? Most people don't. And I'm grateful that the First Presidency and the Quorum of the 12 have been emphasizing over the last few years that we need to elevate our appreciation of Easter, our celebration of Easter. We can't elevate Easter. It's already at the top. In fact, if I had to rank them in importance, I would put Easter first, above Christmas. That Christmas actually is only important because of Easter. Easter is atonement. And it's because we needed an atonement that there needed to be an incarnation. Without Christmas, there is no Easter. But without Easter, there's no need for Christmas. And so for us to spend some time pondering, thinking, preparing, praying, what can we do in our wards, in our families, in our individual lives, to prepare ourselves for Easter Sunday, what should be, in many ways, the most glorious day of the entire Christian calendar. Now, to think about how to do that, and especially as we're beginning to create some family traditions, perhaps you've had them for a long time, hats off to you. But for others, that Easter is a day we celebrate and it's important, but it boils down to eggs and baskets and rabbits and chocolate and things like that. Yes, a token nod to the resurrection, but to be fully prepared for it. Often in the Jewish time period, the day before the Sabbath was known as the preparation. And to think about, are we preparing sufficiently for the Sabbath that's about to come? Similar way, are we preparing enough for Easter? In other churches, there are those that are less active, we would call them, that are often referred to as Christmas and Easter Christians. And those are the 2 times a year that they go to church. If they had to pick 2 times, those are the best 2 times to go, okay? But again, what are we doing to make Easter more of a celebration? My hope today, this week, is as we study the scriptures, I'm going to step away from the Doctrine and Covenants. As much as I love that book, I hope you know that. And I'm going to go back to the New Testament to spend some time in the original Easter in its original setting. And since we are taking this year's material and splitting it up into 7 little chunks so that we can have some daily dosage, I'm hoping that I can give you a daily devotional about Easter for each day of this week. And the way I've done it is I've chosen, these powerful spiritual one-liners from the Easter narratives, in hopes that each one-liner can lead to a day's worth of pondering and thought on your part. I actually was thinking, what would it be like to have daily Easter egg hunts the entire week leading up to Easter? The week before Easter is called Holy Week in most traditions. And every day of that week, Jesus is doing something that prepares us, or that prepares him for that Easter Sunday. And I wonder what it would be like to have an Easter egg hunts each day of the week, but within each of those little plastic eggs, go ahead and put in the candy or the jelly beans, whatever. But in some of them, put a little scrolled up piece of paper where you've typed out an incredible spiritual one-liner. I'll focus on 7 today, but I'll give you a few other ones to ponder at the end. But I wonder what it'd be like, especially if your kids are little, to have all kinds of candy-filled Easter eggs hidden around the house, but then to say, okay, you each get to go pick one, and then you take an Easter egg that has candy in it too. You don't want them to shake it and know there's a difference. But in one of those that has candy, you also put that scrolled up scripture. And then you hide it somewhere. You tell the kids, go out and find things, and when whoever finds the one that has, they all come back together, they open up their Easter eggs, everybody gets candy, but if there's one that had the scrolled scripture, ask them to read it and share their thoughts about it. Now, you might need to help them depending on the age. Older ones, they might be able to do the whole thing themselves. Maybe you explain the context and they try to pull out some meaning. But to do that several rounds worth, or maybe each day you do it and build up this supply. If we can make Easter more scriptural, it will become more Savior-centered. And if we can include that all week long as we're preparing through Holy Week, maybe you do things that are specific to the days of the week that Jesus, as Jesus prepared for Easter. And we spend some time cleansing our temple, or we spend some time pondering and preparing for the second coming. We spend some time in a Last Supper and pondering what the sacrament means to us, or the kind of self-sacrifice Jesus went through in Gethsemane. We include real repentance and deep, deep faith in that week, a renewing of covenants, whatever it might be. But I do hope that scripture study and discussion as family or as friends can be a part of it. And so I hope that some of what we talk about today can be a blessing for you along those lines. Now, to do that with these 7, I'm going to focus on the resurrection itself. Easter is a time to talk about Gethsemane and Calvary and the empty tomb. Our entire understanding of atonement should be included here. But I'm not going to spend this week in Gethsemane or Calvary. I'm going to spend it outside the empty tomb. It's going to be Easter Sunday itself, though with one of the verses today that leads us to it. I actually remember my very first Easter Sunday celebrated with my wife. My wife lost her mom when my wife was 8, and then when she was 15, she lost her brother. And for her, the resurrection is far more real than it ever was for me when I first met her. Halversons don't seem to die. We just go on living. That has begun to change the older we get. But for my wife, resurrection was a present promise, a reality that she longed to participate in, to see her mother again, to see her brother again, all because Jesus is the first fruits of them that slept. This Easter is actually the first one I'll celebrate after the passing of my father. And to have that sense of realism when it comes to the resurrection, I am grateful to have closer people in mind now more than ever when I ponder the glories of those who burst forth from the tomb. Jesus, in dying, tore the temple veil in half from top to bottom. Spiritual death has been overcome. You can come boldly to the throne of grace. But in the same breath, in the Matthew account, just as the temple veil is bursting open, the graves of many are bursting open as well. So spiritual death conquered with the parted veil, physical death conquered with the parted tomb. And for Jesus to bring us back into the presence of God and back into union, body and spirit, those reunions, spiritual and physical, that's what Easter is all about. So as we celebrate these things, may we ponder the truths that God has given us. And I'll give you 7 worth pondering today. For this first one, I want you to think about, well, brace yourself. This might be a little uncomfortable. How well do you remember high school English? Do you remember your verbs and adverbs? Do you remember the object of the preposition? Do you remember all of those grammatical kinds of things that usually were tipped off with red marking when you turned in a paper and got it back from the teacher? I want to talk for a moment about verb tenses to start today. And verb tenses are typically pretty easy. We get the past, present, and future. When I had to learn Spanish, there was all kinds of different ways to conjugate verbs, and it's like, what's past participle and future perfect and all these kinds of things. It seemed more intuitive in English. But man, when you're learning verb tense, you better get it right or you might cause some problems. Imagine some verb tense disasters. Like you go to someone that you're trying to create a relationship with, and you say, I really loved you. Wait. Did you say loved as in past tense? What does that mean? If that's a past tense verb, then you don't love me in the present? That would be a problem. Imagine you have an interview with your boss at work, and you say, I have worked really hard, or I had worked really hard, or I am working really hard, or I will work really hard. Each of those verb tenses tells the boss something a little different, and they're not all good. Imagine if Martin Luther King at the steps of the Lincoln Memorial said, I had a dream, instead of I have a dream. Because if that dream is past, does that mean the real dream's never going to be fulfilled? There's a problem there. Imagine fast and testimony meeting if it were all in the past tense and people said, I knew the church was true. As if that's no longer an option. We've got to get our verb tenses correct. Now, there's two places in the Easter accounts that I think verb tenses speak volumes. One of them is when these two disciples are on the road to Emmaus. This is Easter Sunday. They don't know it's Easter Sunday, but it's been a few days since Christ was crucified, and that's where their mind is, in the past. Jesus, the risen Lord, appears and kind of joins them as they're walking toward Emmaus. They don't recognize him for who he is. Their eyes are holden, but he's asking them, man, why the long faces? Why do you look so sad? And they're shocked, like, you must not be from these parts. Do you not know what's happened? And Jesus kind of plays dumb here to let them speak for themselves. And they start explaining why the long face. This is what they say in Luke chapter 24, verses 19 to 21. Concerning Jesus of Nazareth, that's what we're worried about. That's what we're sad about. And then notice the verb tenses, which was, past tense, a prophet mighty in deed and word before God and all the people. Keep going and keep looking at verb tenses. How the chief priests and our rulers delivered him, past tense, to be condemned to death, past tense, and have crucified him, past tense. Now, those past tenses I don't mind. That did happen a few days ago. But look at the next verse. But we, so despite all that the enemies of Jesus had done to him, we disciples trusted that it had been he which should have redeemed Israel. And beside all this, today is the third day since these things were done. Well, did you catch their personal past tense? We trusted. Whoa, does that mean you don't trust anymore? That it had been he. Oh, well, has that ship sailed and sunk? Is that no longer an option? We thought it would have been him, but I guess it isn't because he died and it's over. When it says we thought that it would be he which should have redeemed Israel, that's all past tense too. Is the hope in Israel's redemption past as well? This is a problematic past tense on the part of these disciples. If they think that their hopes in Christ are confined to the past and not blessing their present or giving them hope for a glorious future. It's in that moment that a present tense, risen Lord, the one that they are speaking about in the past, right there with them, blessing their present, though they do not have eyes to see. He begins opening Scripture to them, begins helping them understand the way things needed to be, brings them into a more glorious present. The rest of the story of the disciples on the road to Emmaus is amazing. And there's another one-liner I want to bring up later in today's lesson, a later daily devotional. But hold on to this thought of them being trapped in a past that didn't translate into a glorious present or future. They don't know about that yet. But then let me show you the other verse that I'm really wanting to ponder. If I could just pick one scriptural phrase to print out and put in an egg, it would be this one from the book of Mark. Mark chapter 15 describes the crucifixion. And there's all kinds of players on the stage here, but one that goes unnamed is a Roman centurion. He happens to be on crucifixion duty that day through no fault of his own. But he's watching this unfold as Jesus is dying in the most brutal way that Rome could create. Well, when Jesus gives his last breath, says it is finished, according to the John account, and then gives up the ghost. Once Jesus has died, well, when the veil is going to tear, well, the earth is beginning to tear as well, and it's an earthquake that happens. And imagine being the centurion there at the foot of a quaking cross, wondering what just happened. I saw someone die, and the earth itself is moved by that. Remember the Book of Mormon? There'll be so many natural disasters that even the kings of the isles of the sea that have no idea what's going on will be constrained to exclaim, the God of nature suffers. Well, the centurion is getting a front row seat, and he's just seen the God of nature, the Creator himself, crucified. Something's going on. Who was this man? Well, he has an answer. And according to Mark, chapter 15, verse 39, he says, truly this man was the Son of God. What has he heard? What rumors are flying around Jerusalem that even a Roman ear will pick up on? Why are we crucifying this man? What did he do? That's probably what everybody's thinking when they see a criminal being crucified. So what's he guilty of? And some would say, well, insurrection, treason against Rome. Those in the know would say the Jews want him crucified for blasphemy. The Jewish leaders, that is. Blasphemy. What did he say? Well, he's claiming to be the Son of God. Oh, okay. Just neighborhood crackpot. But when he dies and the earth begins to mourn, well, maybe they were right. Truly, this is a verily, verily testimony moment on this centurion's part. Truly, this man was the Son of God. But did you catch the verb tense? Was? As if that's over? Our hopes have faded? I am so grateful for a one-word correction in the JST. In the Joseph Smith translation of that verse, the centurion does not use the past tense. He uses the present. And so talk about an incredible testimony. As it dawns on this Roman soldier, what has just happened, but what remains true? Truly, this man is the Son of God. And for all of us living in the future of that ancient past, can we still hold on to the present tense is? Can we testify that Jesus Christ is the Son of God? Can we testify that because of Easter, no matter how bad things have been, our past doesn't define us? We can be free in our present and have a glorious future. That ashes can become beauty, that dark Fridays can become glorious Easter mornings, and that a past tense verb can be left in the past and replaced with glorious verbs in the present. That's the message of Easter. It's present and future because of glorious things that happened in the past. So get over our concern with grammar and embrace a change in verb tense so that no matter what has happened in your past, your future will be glorious. That's Easter and part of its message. Now, there's more I want to teach. And so if we move ahead to the next day and we send the kids out to find more eggs, they'll open up another one today. And what might be in this one? This one's interesting as well because we're now shifting from Friday evening and the burial of Jesus. We're going to move forward a little bit, but what happens during that period between Friday and Sunday when finally the women come and recognize an empty tomb? There's a phrase here that is in the mouth of Pilate. He's going to be our speaker for this one. And he says an interesting thing that I hope we can wrestle with as we celebrate Easter this year. For this one, let me ask you a question to start. Have you ever been put on guard duty? Have you ever had to watch something to make sure everything's okay? Maybe babysitting is the modern equivalent. Guard duty over some little kids. Well, you don't want them to escape your watch, right? Maybe you've had times where you're guarding something else. Maybe there's a really important meeting and it's got to be confidential or private. And so you're standing post at the door to make sure nobody comes in or interrupts the meeting. To think about Places like prisons and banks, yes, there need to be security guards standing watch. But cemeteries? I don't know if cemeteries need night guards. I don't know if they need a security force. If so, I guess it would be people coming in. Is grave robbing still a thing? I don't know. But in the past, I think it was. And so, yeah, I guess maybe there are some that are going to stand watch. But all you're watching for is people coming into the cemetery who shouldn't be there. You're not looking out for people in the cemetery trying to break out. At least not the ones that are in the cemetery, if you know what I mean. Well, that's what makes this part of the Easter story so fascinating to me. Jesus has been crucified. Joseph of Arimathea, a wealthy man and a disciple of Jesus, but a little nervous about people knowing about that because of his wealth and his prominence and his position, finally doesn't care what people think anymore. Thank you for that, Joseph. He comes to Pilate, and according to one account, he begs for the body of Jesus. Another, he craves it. He makes it clear, I don't want him thrown in some pauper's grave, some unmarked hole in the ground next to two unnamed thieves that were crucified alongside him. I am a man of wealth, of position, of esteem. I have just hewn out of hard rock a new tomb meant for me. I'd rather donate this tomb for a time to Jesus. Can he be buried with the rich in his death as was prophesied? And can I have the body of Jesus to give it a proper burial? Even Nicodemus comes forth. He that was a little hesitant back in John chapter 3, rushes into the scene and contributes 100 pounds worth of myrrh and aloes. This is the wise man at the end of Jesus' life. We had frankincense and myrrh at the beginning. We're getting some myrrh at the end. And to see all these people coming to give Jesus the burial he deserves. What's interesting, though, is there were others that were concerned about that. And when Pilate gave permission for Joseph to take the body of Jesus and give it that beautiful burial, there were some other chief priests and scribes among the Jewish leadership that runs to Pilate and says, wait, careful. We've heard rumors that Jesus was supposed to come back from the dead. Now, we all know that's impossible, of course. Okay, we enlightened Romans and Jews. We Hellenized people. But I'm worried that if his disciples sneak in and steal the body and then take it away and give it some other burial somewhere else, then they'll be able to stand and point at an empty tomb and say, see, he rose from the grave just like he said. And it will be the ultimate hoax, but it will be a trick that will trick the history itself into believing in something that is scientifically impossible. That story of Christianity will be worse than the story we tried to close at crucifixion. So you got to place guards there. It's not enough to seal it with a stone. Guard it with Roman soldiers. Well, what does Pilate say? Pilate's been a little frustrated with these people. I'm going to put on the sign on the cross whatever I want to put, so just leave it alone. I didn't want to be here. I washed my hands of the whole thing. I know he's an innocent man, or was. But he says an interesting thing. Matthew is the account. This is in chapter 27, verse 65. Pilate says to these concerned leaders, make it as sure as ye can. You want to secure the gravesite? Fine. Do your best. Make it as sure as ye can. Now, if somebody reads that on a little scroll, they're like, what does this even mean? Well, have them read it in context and see the storyline. As soon as as Pilate gives them that permission, the account says they went, they made the sepulchre sure, sealing the stone and setting a watch. So that's as sure as they could make it. We're going to seal the stone in place. Let's cement this door shut. Let's set a night watchman and keep watch over this. There were shepherds watching over the birth of Jesus. Now we got some soldiers watching over the death, and the death has already happened. Why do you need to guard it? Well, because grave robbers, body snatchers might come in to take away the body of Jesus. They are guarding against outsiders coming in. Well, as we all know, no spoiler alert needed. What they needed to guard against was an insider coming out. This was not a matter of breaking into a sealed tomb. This was someone breaking out of that tomb and coming forth alive. This is Daniel and the lion's den, who was put in a place he was meant to never emerge from. They put a stone over the den so the lions wouldn't get out. They weren't worried about Daniel not getting out. And yet the next morning when the king runs to see if by some chance miracle he survived, they roll a stone away, and he who was supposed to be dead came forth living. Well, that was simply a preview of greater miracles to come. And that greatest of miracles was the resurrection itself. What I want to say about that phrase, make it as sure as ye can, I basically want to say to the soldiers and the chief priests, yeah, good luck keeping Jesus in there. Good luck turning back the resurrection. There is no way that you are going to be able to keep Jesus from rising with healing in his wings. There is no way you're going to be able to keep him from bursting the bands of sin and death. There is no way that you can stop him from shining light into your darkness. Devil, do your darndest and make it as sure as you can. You will be unsuccessful. And what amazes me, when that proved to be the case, and the grave burst, and the sealed stone was unsealed, rolled away, and Jesus is not there, for he has risen, those concerned leaders, freaking out over this, ran back to the guards and said, please tell a lie. We will pay you. We will give you large money, is the phrase. I don't know how large, but whatever it takes to convince a soldier, make up a story that his disciples came and snatched the body and somehow you slept through it and they made the in and out and were never detected. And according to the account, that's a story, a falsehood, but a story that still is had in certain quarters to the day of its writing. Okay? That plan worked among some. And whenever they heard the story of the resurrection, that's what they thought it was. Just a story, nothing more. Disciples that broke in and then broke the body of Jesus out. I'll say this. When the devil tries to do his darndest, when he tries to make it as sure as he can that there could be no resurrection, what he ends up doing, since he can't fight against the fact, instead he will battle against the belief. And he will do whatever he can to get us to believe falsehoods, to think that that's impossible, it can't be done. There must have been something else going on. This is some pious fraud, some kind-hearted storyline. Oh, my friends, if they're trying to make falsehood as sure as they can we hold on to truth as sure as we can? That is the message and meaning of Easter, to hold on to an empty tomb that was emptied from the inside, that Jesus burst the bands and rose again. And because of that, no matter how hard the devil works to keep you surely behind bars, you are free because of Jesus. As time goes on, the story of these angels, two of them, according to most accounts, are sitting there on this moved stone outside this empty tomb. Because it's been, the Jewish Sabbath has passed, Saturday. Sunday has now come, what will soon be the Christian Sabbath. The Lord's Day is what they'll call it in Scripture. And now people are starting to come back. They worshiped, they honored the Sabbath, kept it holy as they should, though their hearts wanted to rush to the tomb, to at least administer more aloes and spices and so on to the body of Jesus. They had no idea that he wouldn't need that service anymore. Okay? But there's something that these angels say to the women particularly that are there that always astounds me. So for this third element this week, this third devotional, let me bring up a phrase from the angels. There's a more famous one, but I want to say something they say right alongside it that I don't think we memorize and quote often enough. This one, I want it to grow out of our inborn fears and anxieties. We all seem to have them. What kinds of things are you afraid of? What anxieties are you wrestling with? Even when there are hopes and faith, so often there's doubt and fear that nibbles away at the corners of it. Even when God is trying to come through to you, sometimes our fears make us second guess that could really be him. It's interesting that in Scripture, almost every time an angel appears to someone, usually their first words are, "Fear not." I'm like, I know this is out of the ordinary, okay? Sorry I didn't give you the heads up, have you put your sunglasses on before I appeared, but calm down, it's going to be okay. Now, there's a similar thing going on in the resurrection with all kinds of reassurances to people that are freaking out over all of this. It's okay. You don't have to fear. Jesus himself says that repeatedly when he begins to appear to people in the resurrection. A couple of examples. In Luke chapter 24, when Jesus appears to the disciples on the road to Emmaus, one of the first things he says to them is, "Peace be unto you." And in John chapter 20, the John account of the resurrection, as Jesus is with the assembled apostles, several times he says to them, "Peace be unto you." It's like, calm down. It's okay. Later, shortly thereafter, with the disciples on the road to Emmaus, he says to them, "Why are ye troubled?" Again, he's playing dumb, and he wants to kind of get a finger on the pulse of these disciples. Are you in the past tense, present tense, so on? What do you think about what just happened in Jerusalem? But he says, "Why are ye troubled?" There's some anxiety there. There's some concern. There's some fear. He even asks them, "Why do thoughts arise in your hearts?" And that's an interesting body part, because our thoughts seem to arise in our minds, or do they? Sometimes with anxiety, that seems to be a thought, quote unquote, but it's based more in the heart. In fact, it's based more in the gut. And I'm feeling this fear. There's this worry that I'm wrestling with. So what's going on? Why are you thinking things that make your stomach hurt? Where's this anxiety emerging from? Well, so many times in life we get troubled with anxious thoughts arising in our heads and hearts, making us worried where God is in all of this, what I should do in all of this. And what amazes me about the Easter story, if you rewind just a few hours before Christ appears to the disciples on the road to Emmaus, before he appears there in the closed room in Jerusalem among the disciples assembled, there are these angels standing outside the tomb. The women come running, and they say an interesting thing. The guards, by the way, are there frozen in fear. The women come, the angels reassure the women with very famous phrase. "He is not here, for he is risen." As he said. The "as he said" is like, didn't you see this coming? He let you know this repeatedly. But that phrase, super famous, "He is not here, for he is risen." I love that one. But I actually want to quote the previous verse. Just a few moments before, they say this to the women: "Fear not ye, for I know that ye seek Jesus." I want to elevate that phrase right alongside the one that follows about "he is not here, for he is risen," because I love what these angels are saying about these women's fear. Their anxiety in some ways is unfounded, not just because he is risen. That's the ultimate good news. But even before I get there, you have nothing to fear because you're seeking Jesus. And if you seek, ye shall find. If you ask, it will be answered. If you knock, he will open. It's just a matter of time. And as long as you are seeking him, even if you haven't yet emerged from this cloud of fear, there's nothing to fear right now. Life will get better. So trust it. Embrace it. Look forward with faith. Look unto me in every thought, right? Doubt not, fear not, D&C 6. But here in the New Testament, this Easter morning moment, you're looking for the right thing. So you have nothing to fear. And even if you haven't yet found what you're looking for, the search itself should be sufficient reassurance that all will be well. All will be well. To any of you who are struggling this Easter season with whatever anxieties are on your mind, whatever thoughts are arising in your heart, whatever thing needs to be comforted with the words, peace be unto you, seek Jesus. Look for him. Whether it's, in fact, I'll put it this way. This might be the other bookend of what happened early with a 12-year-old Jesus that another woman was in search of, this time his mother Mary. You all remember the story. And to see her frantically searching through Jerusalem until she finally finds him at the temple. Thy father and I have sought thee sorrowing. And Jesus is like, wait, what? How is it that ye sought me? Wist ye not that I must be about my Father's business? Why would you have to search? Where else was I going to be? Beeline it to the temple. Here I am doing my Father's work. And I think in some ways, as we seek Jesus, if we know just that much about us, I know that I seek Jesus, then fear not. And where's the best place to look? Wherever the Father's work is to be done. If you will simply roll up your sleeves and engage in that work, His glory, extending His love to His children, you'll find Him. And if that's what you're seeking, you have nothing to fear. I am so grateful for that realization. In some ways, that's what Easter hunts are all about. Not filled eggs, but empty tombs, and empty because Jesus is off doing His Father's work. Go seek Him. You will find Him. And the result of that Easter search will be glorious. There's a fourth one I want to cover, and it comes in that same moment. So stay with me, actually stay with those angels, stay with those women that are there at that tomb. And there's something else that they say, though this time it's in a different account. The fear not, I know you seek Jesus is in Matthew's memory of Easter morning. This one comes from Luke's account. And I love this one. This is another very famous statement from the angels. I hope it'll come to mind when you pull out the scroll and see this beautiful one-liner. For this one, though, I want you to ponder a question that might prepare us for this question the angels ask. And the question is this. What do you think most people are looking for in life? What are they looking for in life? In some ways, the answer is in the question. It's life. They're looking for real life. They're looking for a happy life. They're looking for a peaceful life. They're looking for a meaningful life. They're looking for life. And Jesus came to give life and to give it more abundantly, the scriptures say. Life is found in Him. So to think about looking for Him, searching for Him, because what I'm searching for is real life. Well, He is the life and light of the world. I am the resurrection and the life. That's what He is. It's what He gives. If you want to find it, then find Him. But sadly, we have so many other places we look for life first. One of the most pessimistic books in the entire standard works is the book of Ecclesiastes. If you ever want to have a really bad day, go and read that one, okay? I mean, it is pickle sucking at its best, to borrow President Hinckley's old phrase. Sour. And it must have been written on a bad day. As the writer of Ecclesiastes, some suggest it's King Solomon, is going through all these other things he went to in search of life. And he tried hedonism. I'll find life and meaning and joy and happiness in pleasure. And that didn't work out. Okay, what about sensual pleasure? We'll go with that. No, that certainly didn't work either. Okay, how about riches and wealth? Surely that's where life will give me some meaning and some joy. And he struck out on that one as well. This is not where I find life. And the amazing thing about Ecclesiastes is it's like process of elimination, searching for real life. And it's not till the end he realizes by that elimination that every other source is gone but God. St. Augustine used to say that the heart of human beings is restless and will remain restless until it finds its rest in God. Some describe that as a God-shaped hole in the soul. And we keep shoving puzzle pieces into it to fill the void, but none of them fit. We might pretend that they do for a time, but ultimately they'll fall out, or there will still be pieces that are obviously missing. Well, it's because that spot was designed by the designer. You're incomplete without me. So search for me and find me. But that search can be difficult. Now, remember what we said a thought ago when the angels in Matthew say to these women at the tomb, "Fear not, for I know that ye seek Jesus." That's good. Luke has a different take on it. In the Luke account, the angels say to the women at the tomb, "Why seek ye the living among the dead?" That's the phrase for today. Why seek ye the living among the dead? Now, if he just said, "Why seek ye Jesus among the dead?" that would have been a really dumb question, because the women would have looked at them skeptically like, "What, are you serious? Are you new around here? Why am I seeking Jesus here? Because this is the last place we saw him. His body was laid in the tomb. We're coming back to care for it." But the way the angels phrased it, it's not just Jesus, it's the living. It's life himself. What on earth would you do? What are you doing looking for life in a place of death? Cemeteries, that's not the place where the living tend to hang out regularly. So why would you look for him here? I almost love how coy these angels seem to be, where they're dropping hints, hoping the women will catch it. Like, why would you search here? You'll never find the living among the dead. Whoa. Did you just say what I think you just said? Christ is not here, for he is risen. Oh, we can go find him. He's alive, and thus life himself will be found by us. It's only a matter of time. It's only a matter of us looking. But we're not going to find him here. Years and years ago, my sweet wife was looking for life in dead places. From age 15 to age 20, she was far away from God, far away from church, far away from everything. She didn't want to have anything to do with those other things. And once she graduated from high school, she felt like she graduated from everything that she was raised with, and she could finally do her own thing. She went off to college, went to a party school in Northern California to be able to do her own thing, live it up. And one of the things that she loved most, one of the things that brought what she thought was real life, was the concert scene. She's always been amazing with music herself, singing, appreciating all of it. And so you name the band, she's probably heard them live in concert. But at one point, I love to hear her tell the story. She's at a concert, living it up with the life she'd finally found to be worth living. And all of a sudden, it was as if the Spirit paused time and let her look around. Picture like a movie in slow-mo where she's in focus, looking around at everyone else out of focus that's dancing, seeming to have a really good time. But she, so serious, looking and seeing how hollow everything is. Now, I'm not bagging on the concert scene per se, but it was a moment for my wife where she realized this isn't where real joy is found. There's got to be something better than this. The concert scene fell out of that God-shaped hole, and she knew she needed to keep on looking. Where did she look from there? Thankfully, that coincided with the return of her brother from a mission, his unconditional love that allowed her to accept a crazy invitation to drop out of her life and join him in a move to Utah, to start over. She accepted that invitation miraculously, dusted off a copy of the Book of Mormon, wondering what was in there after all, and she's never allowed that copy to collect dust since. I am amazed at what my wife found once she began looking in living places. And honestly, to me, what's so incredible about all of this is if we'll have the eyes to see, if we will recognize, have that slow-mo moment and see, have I been searching for life in dead places? Again, we're back to Mary. Where are you looking for Jesus? He's going to be at the temple. He's going to be doing his Father's business. He's going to be ministering unto the least of these, his brethren. He's going to be doing things that bring life to the lifeless. So do not look for him in dead places. Look for life among the Prince of Life, among those that are trying to follow him, among those who need him desperately and don't know where he's to be found. I think one of the greatest questions we could ask ourselves at Easter or any other time, why seek I the living among the dead? I know where I'll find Jesus, and it's not here. So where else should I go to find him? Now, with that in mind, can we go back to the disciples on the road to Emmaus? There's so much in Luke chapter 24. Luke was fascinated by the resurrection. He was a physician. He's a doctor. So for him, it's like, how on earth does a dead body come back to life? He's the one that focused on the bleeding from every pore in Gethsemane, doctor's eyes. And he's the one that is really wondering about, is it physical? Is there a corporeal, body-based resurrection? He writes about Jesus, touch me, feel my hands. No, I'm not a spirit. I'm a resurrected body. Luke talks about Jesus eating food. It's like, that's wild for someone who will never die again, so he doesn't need it. Not kind of nice, by the way. We don't have to eat, but we can. Nice. That's beautiful. But what's interesting in Luke's long account of the resurrection and these disciples on the road to Emmaus, they're walking along the road and they're discussing what has already happened a few days before. This goes back to our discussion earlier about past tense versus present tense. They're still caught in the past. Can't blame them. They don't yet know the present and future. But Jesus is going to help them with that. And here's how he does it. For this fifth thought for the week, think about it in these terms. What do you do when life doesn't go according to plan? When what you thought was going to be doesn't come to be. And especially when the best laid plans of mice and men oft go astray, that kind of moment, where the saddest words of tongue and pen are these, what might have been. I remember when my wife and I were first married, we were in a student ward, the good old BYU 174th. Yeah, there's a lot of words there. And there was a young couple. We were all young couples, a bunch of newlyweds trying to figure out life, but with all life ahead of us and therefore all the hope in the world. Talk about newlywed rose-colored glasses on, right? Well, there was a couple, the Oldhams, wonderful, wonderful couple, Matt and Celeste, and they were as full of life and love as the rest of us. And after a few months, we noticed that Celeste was walking to church a little slower than the week before. We didn't think much of it until a few weeks later, she was really leaning on Matt's arms. And then a few weeks later, he was wheeling her in on a wheelchair. And a few weeks later, realizing this is not a temporary problem. This is multiple sclerosis, and it's going to affect the rest of her life. Talk about getting punched in the face with reality when you feel like you're too young to handle things. That began a 20-year battle. And 20 years later, it was something of a 174th Ward reunion at Celeste's funeral. And we'd all grown up a bit since then. We'd all grown up and realized how wonderfully naive we were to think that life would stay easy for all of us when it didn't, and it hasn't for any of us. There's something about reunions. It's not just the gray hair, it's the battle wounds. And it's the depth and it's the understanding that life was harder than we thought it was going to be. I'm thinking of speaking of young couples, I had a class a few semesters ago at BYU where there were 5 members of the same family in one class. The Bennetts, they were awesome. Several brothers, a sister-in-law. It was like family reunion every day in class. It was awesome. And one of those brothers is now back in my class this semester. So I was asking him for the catch up. How's the rest of the fam doing? He was describing, oh, she's on her mission. This brother and sister-in-law, they had a baby. I'm like, oh, I'm so excited. That's wonderful news. And he said, yeah, she was born with a rare genetic defect and she's having daily seizures. And my brother and his wife are just trying to figure out how to handle all this. And my heart just sunk as I thought, these are kids. I know my students don't like to hear that, but that's what I was when I got married. Just a kid with all the hope for a glorious future. And man, some people have to grow up fast. Sometimes it doesn't happen when you have a baby. Sometimes it's shortly after marriage. Sometimes it's when you're young. Sometimes life will present its challenges to you. Eventually, sooner or later, we will realize, okay, it's like what Elder Maxwell used to say. You realize that life was more than a couple of deep knee bends and brisk push-ups. It's like, wow, God means business when he wants us to grow up in him, and growing pains are real. This is way harder than I thought. Well, where's Easter in all of this? This is Easter. At least it's Friday and Saturday before Sunday morning comes. Those dark days of crucifixion, those questioning days of Saturday, what happens before the glorious Sunday morning rolls around? But let me show you something that Jesus says to these troubled disciples on the road to Emmaus. Long faces, peace be unto you. Why are you troubled? Why do thoughts arise in your hearts? What's going on? They start to explain, well, past tense, we thought that Jesus was the guy and he died, and so it's over. And then Jesus says this. I love this. This is the phrase for today. Luke 24, verse 26. Ought not Christ to have suffered these things and to enter into his glory? Ought not? Think about that. What is Jesus saying? Isn't this the way things were supposed to be? Didn't he tell you repeatedly, especially from the moment right before transfiguration? From transfiguration on, the messianic secret is past. It's time to let you know what's really about to happen. We're going to go to Jerusalem. I will go to Jerusalem. I will be betrayed into the hands of sinners. I will be crucified and rise again the third day. And they're scratching their head going, that's the weirdest parable he's ever told. Wonder what he meant by it. They had no clue that this one wasn't a parable. This was a prophecy. This one's real. And here's Jesus telling these flabbergasted, befuddled disciples, isn't this exactly the way things were supposed to be? Hey, didn't he tell you? In fact, didn't the scriptures tell you this from the very start? Check this out. He says to them, thus it is written, and thus it behooved Christ to suffer and to rise from the dead. I mean, for most of the rest of this resurrection narrative, he's teaching the disciples on the road to Emmaus scripture to tell them it's been right in front of your face the whole time. It was supposed to be this way. How could you not see this coming? Well, I can see why. In fact, in the John account, actually, my bad, this is still Luke. Luke 24, verse 44, when Jesus appears to the others, these other disciples, he's been with the 2 in Emmaus. He comes to the 10, if Thomas isn't there yet. We'll get to him later. And he says an interesting thing. All things must be fulfilled which were written. Think about that. All things must be fulfilled. The scriptures said it would be this way. I told you it would be this way, and thus it has to be this way. Makes me wonder, what's he already told me? What have the scriptures already tipped me off about as far as what life is going to be like? Meant to be easy? Meant to be hard? Yeah, meant to be hard. Growing up in God, growing pains and all. I sometimes joke with my students that you picture we were rushing into the council in heaven, a little late as usual. There were 2 pamphlets outside, and one of them was a pamphlet about a day at the gym, and the other was a pamphlet about a day at the day spa. And not realizing that the gym was the Father's plan and the day spa was Satan's plan, we looked at it real quick and we grabbed the day spa one and like, okay, sounds awesome. When's my turn on earth? And when Jesus raised his hand and said, "Here am I, send me," I'll honor the Father's plan. We're like, oh yeah, we're with him. It's like, I guess he's going to run the day spa. It ain't no day spa. Thankfully, we get days at the spa, but in terms of life in general, it's a day at the gym. And at the gym, there's pain, there's sweat, there's groans, there's torn muscles, there's building some bulk, there's growth, there's progress. Everything God said we needed and everything we fought to obtain, the chance to come to the gym. To the saints, when they went to Missouri, the Lord told them, their first revelation there, good luck here. It's going to be rough. And when they were driven out, what does God say? I told you it would be that way. To these disciples wondering, how could Jesus die? I told you I would. How could the Oldhams go through that? How could the Bennetts go through that? How could any of us go through life as hard as it is? The Father tried to prepare us all and sent the Son to be able to help us through it all. And Easter Sunday is the day it finally dawns on us. It was worth it. Every hard thing about the human condition will be made up for in the resurrection. Every wrong will be made right. Every ash becomes beautiful. I'm looking forward to another 174th Ward reunion where Celeste will run to all of us. I'm looking forward to a day when every one of my students, you included, who has suffered and struggled, will see it was all good. And instead of shaking our fist heavenward, as we're sometimes tempted to do, we will kneel in humble gratitude for he who conquered the human condition by taking it upon himself and then lifting it from the ashes onto glory. That's Easter too. To embrace the difficulty of Friday and the confusion of Saturday, trusting that Sunday will come. There's 2 more things I want to hit this week. I'll try to be brief. There's so much more we could do. It's Easter. It's worth our attention. For this one, though, I want to go back to Emmaus. Luke 24 is such a masterpiece. In fact, Luke was so focused on the resurrection that he didn't just give us a long chapter. He gave us a sequel to his book. The book of Acts is Luke's handiwork. In some ways, the Gospel of Luke is just a prequel to the book of Acts, where he says that the way Acts begins, by the way, it's mind-blowing. He starts and says, well, my previous book was just about what Jesus began to do and teach. Wait a minute, it's what he began to do? Isn't he gone? Isn't he dead? Well, in a manner of speaking. But he's still alive and well. He's still at work. He just now seems to be doing it through his apostles. Luke's focus was on the resurrection. Everything else just led up to it. And what's amazing about the immediate aftermath of the resurrection, as these disciples are on the road to Emmaus and Jesus, unbeknownst to them, he's right there. They just don't recognize him. Well, how's this mini reunion going to end? Well, that's just it. They don't want it to. Have you ever been part of something that you did not want to end? Maybe it is a reunion and you're having so much fun reconnecting with people and I don't want to go back home and lose sight of each other. Whether that's a school reunion, friend reunion, family reunion. Maybe it's a vacation and you haven't had one in a while. And you're like, oh no, that week went by way too fast and I got to go to work on Monday. Right back to the old grind. Sometimes it happens more frequently. To me, sunsets never last long enough. My first summer in Alaska, I'm like, this is more like it. Okay, let's prolong things. Think about 3 Nephi 17. When Jesus tells the assembled Nephites, I got to go, I have other sheep. And they just look at him longingly and don't even have the guts to ask because they feel like it'd be too much to ask. But they look on him as if they would ask him to tarry a little longer. Will you please stay? Have you ever felt that way with spiritual experiences? I wanted to tarry a lot longer on my mission, but had to come home. There are times where I just am in the middle of feeling this transcendence and I don't want it to stop. It's like you're frozen and like, if I move, the magic is going to somehow dissipate. And that's an experience that these disciples have with Jesus once they arrive at Emmaus. Notice what is said in Luke chapter 24, verse 28 and 29. They drew nigh unto the village whither they went. Okay, so they've been on this walk. That's their destination. It doesn't seem to have been Jesus's because it says he, Jesus, made as though he would have gone further. So I'm sorry, I got the next city, the next village on is where I'm going to stop. This actually reminds me of Jesus walking on water. He doesn't walk to the disciples' boat. He walks right on past it. At least he acts that way. I wonder if he's looking over to see if they'll recognize him, see if they'll want him to join them, or if they're content just to keep going on their own. Either that or he realizes, they're not making much progress in the boat. I'm making better progress just walking across the water. Well, when they see who it is, that's when they cry out, and they do want to join him. But it feels like Jesus is doing something similar here. Is it going to dawn on them who they're with as he is about to leave them? Well, at least something must be dawning on their mind because they say to him in verse 29, they constrained him, in fact. This is more than just speaking up. They constrained him saying, abide with us. So please stay, for it is toward evening and the day is far spent. I love that petition on their part. The day is far spent. It's getting late. Maybe this is for your sake. You don't want to walk all that way to the next village in the dark, but maybe it's for theirs. I still don't know who you are, but the way you've been opening Scripture and explaining things and talking to us, will you stay? And mercifully, generously, Jesus does. Yes, I will stay with you. What does he do next? Well, teaches us how we can stay with him. In some ways, this is the beautiful reversal of John 15. John 15 is when Jesus, on the way to the Garden of Gethsemane, gardens, vineyards, vines, he says to his disciples, I'm the true vine and you're the branches. So if you want to stay alive, you got to stay connected. You've got to abide in me. And what I love about these disciples on the road to Emmaus, they want to abide in Christ. So they ask Christ to abide with them. They don't even know who he is yet, but he agrees to stay, just like he agreed to stay a little longer with the people in 3 Nephi 17. Jesus is good like that. And as he abides with them, he teaches them how to abide with him. For example, in verse 30, he took bread and blessed it and brake and gave to them. If that sounds sacramental, it should. In verse 31, their eyes were opened. They knew him. In verse 32, they say, did not our heart burn within us? Because as soon as they know him, he's gone. But they know him now, so he can still be with them in other ways. Or in verse 35, he was known of them in breaking of bread. Again, sacramental moments. if you think about what Jesus is teaching them and what he's taught us, when we break bread, when we renew covenants, when we participate in ordinances, when we spend some extra time with Jesus, he chooses to spend some extra time with us. He abides if we'll only abide in him. I will admit that, especially when I was a kid, I was so devastated when Christmas was over. I mean, we've been preparing for months, and all this anticipation been building up, and now it's over. And you kind of get this post-Christmas depression, and like having to take the tree down and remove the Christmas lights, and what do we listen to now? I don't know, like rock and roll? It's hard. I just want Christmas to linger. Well, if we're elevating our Easter, I hope we feel the same. Anytime we have experiences with Christ, can we extend them? Can we expand upon them? Can we ask him to abide? One last thing I want to talk today, and there's so much more we could do. But this final thought comes from the John account. We've had a moment in Mark's account with the centurion. We've had some time in Matthew with the angels. We had some time with Luke with angels as well, and these wonderful disciples on the road to Emmaus. John, though, is the only account that helps us talk about somebody who has a rather troubling nickname. Do you know anybody who's amazing at giving nicknames? My father-in-law's that way. And every grandchild especially has multiple nicknames. All the kids have multiple nicknames, and they're hilarious. And that's just one of Grandpa's great gifts. Well, Jesus had the same gift and gave some marvelous nicknames. What did he call Simon? He called him Peter, the Rock. What did he call James and John? Boanerges, sons of thunder. His nicknames typically built people up, which makes me feel a little sad that we usually do the opposite with our nicknames, especially a nickname we gave to one of Jesus's apostles, namely Doubting Thomas. There's actually a story a little earlier in John. The story of Doubting Thomas only appears in John, but a little earlier in John, you see not Doubting Thomas, but Daring Thomas. As Jesus says, we got to go to Jerusalem, and you know what that means. I'm going to be crucified. And Daring Thomas says, well, if you go, we're going with you. If you die, we'll die right alongside you. This guy's amazing. Talk about courage. Well, we're actually here to talk about faith. Okay, so we're not going to talk about Daring Thomas. No, we're going to talk about Doubting Thomas. There's a resurrection account. There's an Easter story worth wrestling with. Now, the story of Doubting Thomas is so well known, but what's less known, sadly, is that he wasn't the only doubter. If you want to talk about Doubting Thomas, fine, but to be fair, you better also refer to Doubting Peter and Doubting James and Doubting John and doubting everyone, because they all doubted, at least until they'd known for themselves. And isn't that what Doubting Thomas is chided for? Why didn't you take everybody's word for it? What, you had to see with your eyes and touch with your fingers? You had to know for yourself? Come on, Thomas. Where's your trust in others and their testimony? But I'll bet everybody flinched a little bit when Jesus said something like that to Thomas, because they'd all had similar struggles themselves. Let me give you a handful of verses to show you this. This is Mark chapter 16, verse 11. When Mary Magdalene, having seen the Lord, rushes to the disciples to give them the good news, and they, when they had heard that he was alive and had been seen of her, believed not. Like, seriously? This is Mary Magdalene. She's incredible. And you don't trust her? She's making it up? Or how about this one from Luke 24? And their words seemed to them as idle tales, and they believed them not. There it is again. They believed not. Do you just not trust these sister saints? Come on now. Later in Luke 24, this is now the two disciples on the road to Emmaus. They've rushed back to Jerusalem, given the other apostles the good news. They confirm what they've heard from the women, and yet nobody believes. Look at this, for example, in Mark 16, verse 13. From these, the two disciples run back and tell them, And they went and told it unto the residue, neither believed they them. Man, does nobody believe? Makes more sense now that Jesus would say to the disciples on the road to Emmaus, O fools and slow of heart to believe. That seems to describe everybody. A bit foolish in their lack of faith. But can you blame them? Slow of heart to believe? Yeah, because it's a bit hard to believe. Back from the dead? That's impossible. Well, what about Lazarus? Well, yeah, Jesus was the one who raised him. Who's going to raise Jesus? Jesus is. Lord of life. I am the resurrection and the life, he said about Lazarus. He can do it for himself. He has that power. But let me give you one last sad news. Again from Mark chapter 16, verse 14. Afterward, he appeared unto the 11 as they sat at meat and upbraided them with their unbelief and hardness of heart, because they believed not them which had seen him after he was risen. Did you catch it? Why did he chide them, chasten them? Because they didn't believe each other. They didn't believe those that had had an experience and were sharing that experience, that witness with them. It's too horizontal. I want a vertical one. Horizontal means I have to trust other people. Oh, in our skeptical, cynical age, nobody wants to do that. We have lost faith in one another. And in the process, we've lost faith in God. I'm not sure which is chicken and egg on that one. But when we demand, I'll only believe with a personal vertical testimony, don't make me trust somebody's horizontal testimony along the way. That's a problem. And Jesus chastens them for it. I think the only kind of doubt that deserves no chastening, you'll see in Luke chapter 24, verse 41, when Jesus is right there with them and, quote, they yet believed not for joy, close quote. That's a great one too. Why don't you believe? I'm right here. Well, yeah, we believe, but we can't believe it. It's too good to be true. I'm so stoked about this, so joyful. How's this even possible? Well, handle me and see, right? Here's the thing, though. There is one glorious exception to this sad rule. The sad rule is people don't trust each other. And like Thomas, they have to know for themselves. Why do you think Peter and John went running to the tomb to see if the tale from the women really was true? Why do you think these apostles are gathering, wondering, questioning each other? Is this even possible? The one exception, the glorious one, are the women themselves. Notice this in the Matthew account. They've seen the angels. They've come to the empty tomb. They haven't seen Jesus, but there are angels. Now, I'll admit that's a pretty impressive witness, but it's still not Jesus himself, so I'm still going to call this horizontal. And so what ends up happening, the angels say, go and bring word to his disciples. Now, they don't know for sure yet. It's a still second-hand testimony, angelic or not. But in Matthew 28, verse 9, as they went to tell his disciples, so they're doing it. I haven't seen for myself. I haven't touched with my hand. I haven't thrust my finger in his hands or his side. But I believe in what I've been told by someone else, and I go running. Notice, as they went to tell his disciples, behold, Jesus met them. He cuts them off at the pass. He gives them a vertical testimony of their own because they accepted the horizontal testimony and were en route to give a horizontal testimony of their own. That is beautiful. Too often, I think, we are waiting on the vertical to even begin our horizontal. But to accept a horizontal and be ready to extend that horizontal, faith in others and hope that others would have faith in you, becoming one in that way is what allows God to become one with us. Thank you for exercising faith in faith. Thank you for trusting each other and trusting the process. Now I can come to you and confirm what you already believed in. You receive no witness until after the trial of your faith. Thank you for passing the trial. Faith precedes the miracle. Thank you for exercising the faith. Now here comes the miracle. Well, by the time he comes and appears to the others, Jesus has been with them. This is in the John account now. Thomas wasn't there the first time that they're there to see Jesus for themselves. Remember, they doubted the story of the women. Idle tales, can't be crazy, can't be true. He comes, chides them for not believing. Now I believe. They tell Thomas he was gone that day. Good lesson on not missing meetings, I suppose. But now he's back with the other apostles, and Jesus appears and singles out Thomas to come. Because he'd said, until I see with my eyes and touch with my hands, I need an independent witness. I need it proven to me through two different senses. This is going to be some redundancy just in case. I love how Thomas is portrayed in The Chosen, by the way. He's skeptical, it might be too strong, but he's a rationalist. I need proof. And that seems to be the case in this story. But what does Jesus say? John chapter 20, verse 29, Thomas, because thou hast seen me, thou hast believed. And that's good, he's hinting. But he goes on, blessed are they that have not seen and yet have believed. You see, that's even better. It's good to accept the obvious. Well done. It's better to exercise faith. It's better to trust each other. Even fallible human beings all around you. Don't live life as a cynic. It's depressing for you and for everyone else around you. Will you ever get burned by people that abuse that trust? Yes. But I'd rather be an optimist that's occasionally burned than a lifelong cynic that's occasionally proven true. Yeah, you with me on this? Jesus actually says one other thing to Thomas that is the phrase for the day for me. In John 20, verse 27, he says to him, be not faithless, but believing. He doesn't just say, exercise faith. He says, be. It's not just do, it's not just have, it's be. Let this become your whole manner of being. Don't be faithless, be believing. It becomes your epistemological default. It becomes your approach to life. It becomes your way of being. I trust people. I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. I'll trust God and believe in him and pray that he'll help my unbelief when the first belief is difficult. You understand? I'll be optimistic. I will try. I will try to pass the test of faith so that the miracle can then come and confirm it. That's all that Jesus is asking. We live in a largely faithless age because we've lost faith in faith, and lost faith in each other, and lost faith in God, and lost a lot of faith in ourselves. That's a tough way to be. So be not faithless. All of us. Doubting Jared, doubting Thomas, doubting Peter, doubting John. You wonderful women, thank you for being the opposite of all of this. Thank you for being believing. You've taught us important things. Now I guess it's up to me to see if I've learned the lesson. In fact, last thing I'll share this week. Mark pushes that exact question on all of us. Will you be believing? Or do you need your own proof? You going to join the doubters or move forward with faith? See, for this, you need to understand just something really brief about the end of Mark. Mark has a very odd ending that most scholars believe was not from Mark himself. The last 10 or 15 verses of Mark use words in Greek that were never used elsewhere. It's like coming out of left field. And it's like, who is this guy? It doesn't sound like everything I've learned from Mark the last 16 chapters. And the last verse that people suggest is probably truly Mark is such a cliffhanger that no wonder some later scribe or maybe other disciple felt so moved, like, I have to finish this. You can't stop there. It's like saying, dun, 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 and then you just wait in the silence, and somebody has to come in. Nah, you gotta finish that. Because notice how Mark's ending ends so abruptly. Chapter 16, verse 8. The women have run, they've seen the angels have told them, he's not here, he's risen, go tell everybody else. And they went out quickly and fled from the sepulchre, for they trembled and were amazed. Neither said they anything to any man, for they were afraid. Period. End of gospel. Huh? You can't end there. In that abrupt version, the women don't even have a good ending. Nobody does. But in some ways, that's what I love about it, because it's left for us to finish the book of Mark. I mean, somebody did. And they seem to have cobbled together the accounts from Matthew and Luke. There's so much of Matthew and Luke in the end of Mark. It's wild. It's like, you can't stop there. No, there were disciples on the road to Emmaus. Yeah, there were people, and the disciples and the apostles and everybody, they knew about Jesus. He was risen. And so it's like, oh, okay. Whew. Okay, that's a better way to end the book of Mark. He had me so nervous. I was afraid as they were. And Mark's like, that was the point. What will you do? Will you be faithless, or will you be believing? Will you trust what the angels have said? You are now those women rushing away. What are you going to do? I love the abrupt ending of the book of Mark, because it leaves us to finish it. And that's a story that will never be finished completely. If we'll embrace our Easter, seek for Jesus in living places, find him, and find our faith so well founded, and then tell the world. That's Easter. That's its message. That's its mission. And I hope it's one that we'll accept. I am so grateful for the reality that Easter is worth celebrating. He is risen. So go tell the world. There's so much more we could have done this week. I hope this was enough to whet the appetite. If I had to choose a bunch of honorable mentions from the resurrection accounts, here's just a few, less than a dozen. But if you need more Easter eggs for the grandkids, here's some. For Matthew 28, verse 6, he is not here, for he is risen. Luke 24:12, wondering in himself. That one you might have to help him with. Luke 24:39, handle me and see. Know the resurrection. It's physical. Or Luke 24:41, they yet believed not for joy. How joyful are we? John chapter 20, verse 13 and 15, woman, why weepest thou? An angel asked Mary that question. Jesus asked her the same one. Or John chapter 20, verse 13, her response, they have taken away my Lord, and I know not where they have laid him. That one can get sadly personal in a world that is trying to rob you of your Jesus. What about John chapter 20, verse 16? One word only, Mary. Do we recognize Jesus when we know he knows us by name? Or John chapter 20, verse 16 and 17, feed my sheep. We know that story from Peter. Or John chapter 21, verse 22, last one I'll share. Follow thou me. That's also to Peter. And the following would be far harder than what he might have expected. But isn't that what he said at the beginning? When he first met that wonderful fisher, soon to be a fisher of men, follow me. What's he say when all is said and done? Keep going. My friends, may we all keep on going. May we continue to follow Jesus no matter where he leads. May Easter give us the enthusiasm, the reassurance that following will result in everything Easter promises. To any of you who are suffering, struggling, still caught in a dismal Friday or a challenging Saturday, I promise Sunday will come. I testify of the Lord of life, the resurrection and the life, and I express to him my gratitude and to you my love as I wish you all a happy Easter.
Thanks so much for listening to Unshaken, a proud member of the Faith Matters podcast network. You can learn more about Faith Matters and check out our other shows at faithmatters.org.